are all my children now? Hello there, Facebook world and social media world, YouTube, Instagram, and all of you hundreds of thousands or millions of people watching me right now, hopefully. So welcome to another episode of Steven's Celebrity Trivia. You just caught me watching one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
You've got the body. I've got the brain.
I always love that line. You've got the body. I've got the brains. I actually do know how to do this. I have practiced taking my head off. You know what? I'm not going to do it right now because I've got things to do. I've got things to do like talking to you. I've got things to do like finding out where one of my favorite stars went, Mark Patton. The documentary Scream Queen on Shudder. This is going to be an epic classic.
The making of this film created a lot of hurt for him.
And people ask you about
Mark Patton's, he's a scream queen.
The film that was poised to launch his career ended up destroying it.
All of those aspects of Mark Patton are just astonishing of what he went through in the 90s, in the 80s, and even now. But there is no better way than getting all of the information about one of my favorite actors than saying hi to himself, than saying hi to the king himself. What's up, Mark Patton? It's good to talk to you, man.
Hey, Steve, how are you doing? Hello there.
Hey, that is Mark Patton. How are you? Good to see you.
That's good to see you too. Thanks for coming to my home.
And from what I understand, I'm visiting you down there in Mexico. How do you pronounce that city's name again? You live
It's Celaya, Guanajuato. Yeah, it's about 4 hours away from Mexico City in the center of Mexico. It's a farmland. They're famous for pigs and farms, and it's perfect. It's beautiful. I love it. I've lived here for 15 years now.
Celaya, Guanajuato. Is it?
Yeah.
That's
Celaya,
right.
Guanajuato. It's a tough one for white people.
I get. Well, it's a
lot of G's and J's and H's and U's. It's like long, yeah.
Well,
but it's great. It's a wonderful place. It's near San Miguel Allende, which is really, really famous up in the mountains. But it's just like, I guess it's really like Missouri. It's the Missouri of Mexico. It's like, just think Missouri.
We have to talk about a couple things about you. You're one of my film heroes, I grew up on The Nightmare on Elm Street. The second one was one of my top favorites, along with, of course, one, but I would say, 1 and 2 and 4, those are my top 3.
That's great.
So, but I want to say that you're an amazing person, because actually I remember when I saw that you came out publicly and told the world that you have HIV. You also got over tuberculosis as well. And
yes, I did. Well, I had them all at the same, basically I had them all at the same time, which is kind of a drag. I first came out on, I started talking about it on the convention tours, when I was touring, going to Comic-Con and stuff like that. It just sort of naturally came up, and it was something that I really profoundly care about other people with. And I was very sick. I was a very sick boy. I'm lucky I'm not dead. And it's 21 years. It's amazing. When I recovered, I really felt like it was my obligation, because I honestly, until I was in the hospital, I didn't know I was sick. And, I was so in denial. And then I felt like it was sort of my obligation. And then I began to do that. When I first did it, I did it for The Advocate magazine, and I put the glove on, and we wear that on the cover of the thing. And it went around the world instantly. It was on CNN, and I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. I've got a platform here, some power, and I'm going to use it now. So that's what I did. And that's how I went on to make the documentary Scream Queen. And that all came out of those things. And we've been touring the world with Scream Queen right now. It's just amazing. It's won all kinds of awards all over the world, and it's on Shudder right now, so you can see it there, or Amazon.
No,
it's called Scream Queen: My Nightmare on Elm Street.
you're currently on tour, like as we speak during the COVID?
Oh yeah, I was in the middle of a world tour when COVID hit. So we were, I've been home, you know, isolated because Mexico's just as bad as the United States is with the COVID. We've been here for 8 months now, but we were in the middle of, we'd done the North American part and we were on our way to Europe. And then 2 days later, everything was canceled. So I'm doing virtual tours. Like we just opened in Australia. So I did a lot of press and tours in Australia, and we're getting ready to open in Europe. And then we're playing all over, you know, I mean, Shudder did a big deal with us for the opening, where you could get a free month Shudder to celebrate like gay pride or something. I'm not sure how they did it, but yeah, Shudder bought part of the documentary. So, and you know, it's really successful. It won a Dorian Award, and it's been nominated for all kinds of awards and won film festivals. And now I'm waiting for the disease to clear out a little bit, and then we go to Brazil and Spain and a lot of fun places. Yeah, we've been to 40 cities already.
You have been, you've been all over the U.S. How many times have you been to Philly?
Oh, well, the first time I went to Philly is actually I did a play in Philadelphia.
How did I miss
I lived in Philly. I lived in Philly for 2 months. That was the first time I was there. But I've been to Philadelphia with conventions and whatnot a few times. I can't remember exactly, but like a handful. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get on to the hot topic that I am dying to ask you about. Were you just as upset as the rest of the fans were? I'm sure you were, that you were not in any of the rest of them. After you did Nightmare 2, you were not in the rest of the films except for the documentary Never Sleep Again. A lot of people don't know that Never Sleep Again it's a 4.5-hour documentary. I believe it's still out on Netflix. I have it on Blu-ray, of course. But
yeah, it plays in rotation pretty much everywhere now.
Yeah. Why were you only in one and not anymore? Because Jesse does not die at the end. Nobody dies at the end, except
yeah, Grady dies and the coach dies, but Lisa and Jesse die.
The last thing we see is the glove coming out of the girl in the back, and then the bus driving off into the beginning sequence.
Right. Well, you know what? Honestly, I don't really know why they didn't invite us back. But I do know this. It's that Wes Craven didn't want there to be a series. He was like very strongly against that. He just wanted it to be one movie. So when Bob Shea went ahead and made the second one without Wes, you know, he wasn't involved in it at all. So of course he didn't really care for it. But he did something that was like, you know, I know Wes and I knew Wes. I don't know him now.
Yeah,
He's passed away. But, you know, he did the most kind of disrespectful thing where it's like when he came back to do 3, right, he just pretended like part 2 had never happened.
You said that Bob Shea made the sequel in disregard of Wes's right?
Yes. Yeah, well, it belonged to Bob. So.
Wait. It belonged to. That's right. Rob Shea was the
producer. It always belongs to the producer. Yeah, the owner of New Line Cinema.
Right.
The man that made Wes Craven a billionaire. Yeah. So no, Wes didn't want to do it. And then when Wes realized that it was going to become a series and how much money it was going to make, then he came back on board. And the only one he really was involved in was 3. After that, it was just his name. He wasn't really involved in the creation of those things.
Well, they must have patched things up because Rob Shea was in New Nightmare.
Yeah. Well, Bob Shea's the producer of Nightmare on Elm Street. So Bob Shea owns Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven doesn't own Nightmare on Elm Street. Bob Shea owns it. Wes wrote it, but Bob owns it. Yeah.
Okay.
Bob was the boss. Bob's the boss.
So there wasn't ever any really quote-unquote bad blood between the two?
No. It's just when Nightmare on Elm Street came out, to get the first one made, Bob Shea, who was the owner of New Line Cinema, he had to give away like the digital rights and all that kind of stuff to get money so he could make the film. Right. So by the time that it was released, there was no profit left for him. So he needed to make a sequel so he could make some money. And that's why they made the sequel. Sequels in the 80s were not, a big deal. It was just literally a way to dump something on the market and make some cash.
Yeah,
it just happened to make a lot of money. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 made a lot of money and was very, very successful in the theaters. So then when Wes came back to direct the third one, he just sort of pretended like the second one had never happened. He just moved from Nancy to Nancy. And that's why Jesse's not in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tuesday explained why she replaced Patricia Arquette.
Yes. Yeah, because Patty didn't want to come. She didn't want to come back. So you got to replace him now.
Oh.
What did Tuesday say?
She also said that Patricia was pregnant at the time when they were filming The Dream Master. 4 was the Dream Master.
Right.
So I wanted to ask you, when you first found out that you were going to be in the sequel, when you got the part, did you want to find out right away, well, how is that possible? How are they going to bring him back? We know at the end of the first one, of course, Freddy's hand comes out and drags the mother in while the other goes out while Freddy traps him in the car and drives away. But did you want to find out right away, how are they going to bring him back into the story now that everybody's still technically alive? Or did you just want to wait until the first day of the table read? Or
well, by the time I found out about it, it's like I had a script in my hand, so there was no lag time with me. Do you know what I mean? As soon as I heard they were doing Nightmare on Elm Street 2, I had a script, so I just sat down and read it. So, and I had screen tested for the first Nightmare on Elm Street. So, but honestly, I hadn't seen it. So, I didn't see Nightmare on Elm Street until I was cast in part 2. And I had actually read the script for the second part. And then they played Elm Street for me at the Grauman's Chinese Theater at midnight. And I went and watched it there with my friend Mark. And that's the first time I saw it. So I actually already knew what was happening before you always have to remember that the actors are not they never see the film in the same way that you do, because they see it in reverse. So, I mean, I knew everything before going in, so there were no surprises for me. Okay. And, you have to also remember that, Elm Street has sort of become much more than it was. I mean, it was a big hit, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't what it is today. Do you know what I mean? That didn't really start happening until...
No, movies are not what they are. The horror genre has just completely gone downhill since the mid-90s. I got to tell you.
Yeah, but what I meant by that was like of the popularity of it. I mean, this is a worldwide franchise now. Do you know what I mean? It's like I have fans from all over the world. I have a group in Russia that I deal with. I have one in China that I deal with. I have them in Japan. And this movie, Thailand, it literally is everywhere in the world. But at that time, it wasn't. It was just another movie, Well, and it became Nightmare on Elm Street over the course of time.
Well, I would like to go over the most famous clip from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and I would like to do commentary with it.
Sure.
And I have some questions, because this is the scene that sparked the most controversy.
Sweet dreams, pal. Gravy? What? It's starting to happen again.
So let's start out by this scene with you and Robert Russler. The line, "Sweet dreams, buddy," that's the homoerotic scene that they were talking about. I really don't understand why, just because there's this scene with just the two of you, why this has to be labeled as a gay film.
You know what, it's like, I think it became that way over the course of time. And it's like if you're looking at the film through a particular lens, then you'll see it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like gay people see it differently. And the thing is, it's really, honestly, it's less about homosexuality than it is about gender. because Jesse is the final girl, so I'm playing a woman's part, and generally Jesse would be a girl. You know what I mean? And the one thing that boys are not allowed to be in the movies is frightened, cry, like do anything like a girl. So, and that's how that all began. And then people began to add things to it. But if you look at the Easter eggs inside the movie, are unbelievable. Like just like the posters on his walls. Those are all on Grady's wall. Now he should have had like some Thrasher or, Rad or something like that. Instead, he's got Lamal and Cyndi Lauper and his black silk sheets and it's the same with his.
There are some Easter eggs.
Yeah, there are lots of them. In my room, Jesse's room.
Lyman Ward. A lot of people don't know that's Lyman Ward. He is an iconic character actor. He played Ferris Bueller's dad, and I'm actually in Ferris Bueller. That's how he met his wife, Cindy Pickett, and they starred together. They were also in Sleepwalkers in 1992 together.
Wow, that's fantastic.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't. I mean, I met Lyman, but I met him I didn't actually meet him here. I met him on other films, but yeah, he's wonderful. I love all his little character.
He has a hilarious episode of One Day at a Time. But anyway, going on. How did let's talk about how did they film this? How did they film that of Freddie murdering Robert Ressler? How did they do that in how many takes?
Well, it took 3 days to shoot the entire scene, but the majority of the scene was actually the Robert scene was when Robert kills Robert. That's pretty straightforward and easy, because they just lift him up and then stab him. The transformation, my transformation, and this part right here that you're looking at right now, this took a long time. And we only had, and you see the level of I'm at right there, right? Yeah. You imagine doing that for 3 days. I mean, it had to be that. I slept for about 2 days after this was over with because it was super exhausting. But the most difficult thing was because there's no CGI. So all of that stuff is active. There's no computers involved in what you're seeing there. So it's all puppets and hands and actors and lights and cameras. So that's a big scene, in the history of horror.
So are we to assume that the answer is yes, there was an underlying gay tone between the two of you? Also the scene where he pans to you on the ball field, and also another scene where you sneak into the gay club. However,
that's a dream.
That was a dream, right? That was a dream.
That's the way they talk about this in regard to now as the nightmare is Jesse's, according to David, the writer. Okay, it's all of Jesse's repressed homosexuality. That's what he's afraid of. That's what his nightmare is. So when he has the dream, he goes into the gay bar and there's the coach. The coach is going to rape him, and that's his fear of himself. And Freddie is, and over the course of time, it's become that like Freddie is the manifestation of his self-hate or HIV or whatever was, because that was 1985. Do you know what I mean? There was a very not cool time to be a homosexual in Hollywood in 1985 because of the AIDS epidemic, and everything became very closeted and it was dangerous. So, and that's what all of the subtext of this movie is laid on at this point. So, and now film scholars go back and, how they look at things in retrospect. And this is considered, in the canon of queer cinema, this is like the touchstone. I mean, that is now taught in almost every gay cinema class in the world. I mean, I have dissertations stacked up. I could interview for a dissertation every day of the week if I wanted to. And then that's what Scream Queen is about, the documentary.
What was Robert Englund's response to that? Did he say during filming, there's a lot of undertones that people are going to be wishy-washy about? Are we doing a horror movie? Are we doing a closeted gay movie? What are we doing here?
No, he and in retrospect, he and Robert Ressler talked about it quite a bit. It was obvious to both of them, and you can see it in Robert's performance. I mean, Robert Englund talks about it a great deal now. Again, he's in my documentary a lot. Mm-hmm. And then, and also he just did an article about that he's hoping that they reboot Nightmare on Elm Street 2 again, but with Jesse, with the gay part of it moved to the front, you know, that it really is Jesse and Grady. And, but Robert treats Jesse like a lover. Do you know what I mean? It's, he, you know, he's seducing me. That scene in the hallway where he's rubbing my face and you've got the body, I've got the brain. Go back and look at that and look at it like it's Romeo and Juliet, or he plays it as Beauty and the Beast, you know, that he's in love with my beauty and he wants to, you know, he wants to kiss me. He's about to kiss me right when, you know, he pulls his head off. And, you know, both Lisa and Freddie both love me. So, yeah, I mean, they talked about it quite a bit. I didn't talk about it because I didn't really realize until about halfway through what was going on. And, you know, at that time, I didn't really want to be in a gay film. It wasn't something that I would have chosen to do because I'm a little light myself and I was very protective of my own image. And this movie did not do a lot for my self-esteem. It got really good reviews and all that kind of stuff, but it was just, you know, on the internet, it was a nightmare for many, 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 many years. And I took some of that stuff way too personally. I didn't realize how swampy the internet was or how swampy fans can be. And, you know, I just didn't realize, you know, I had left show business. And now I understand media a whole lot more. And what was used to be a real negative has turned into a huge positive for me. I mean, huge, huge positive. Jesse and Nightmare on Elm Street have opened so many doors in the world to me, and have given me a life that I never dreamed possible, actually. So I love it. I'm very proud of it.
Okay. One last question about Nightmare 2. Did Kim Myers know that she was basically playing a quote unquote beard? Kim Myers played Lisa, like towards the end of the script when she said,
No, Stephen, none of this was discussed.
Oh.
I mean, none of it was discussed. And, you know, Kim she's a beautiful part, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think the scene in the cabana with the two of them, you know, where they're kissing and then he goes away where the tongue comes out. But when, you know, he has to leave, do you know what I mean? In my mind's eye, now Kim and I have talked about it in retrospect, it's like that's where she kind of realizes he doesn't love her. You know what I mean? And for whatever reason, he doesn't. He just wants to leave. He wants to go someplace else. But she's a good friend, you know, and she's going to save him. So I think that's the way it played. And none of us ever had a negative, oh, she's a fag hag, or we never had that vibe on this thing from us as a group of actors. None of us are homophobic. And Robert Ressler, you know, he just had a little baby girl. He just had his fourth child. Oh. And we go all over the world, and so many men come up to him and go, oh, you were my first crush, and I loved you, and they want to get a picture with him and, you know, hold hands and everything. And he's just the kindest, sweetest, you know, he's the most straight guy in the world, but he would never offend anybody in any way. You know, it's like when they say, oh, you were my first boyfriend, he just says, thank you. And I just think that is indicative of all of us. You know, we're pretty gracious people, and it's a good crowd to be a part of.
Yeah. Robert Ressler also developed an amazing fan base when he was in Shag. Remember with Phoebe Cates and Bridget Fonda and Annabeth Gish, and it was Annabeth Gish, Paige Hanna, Daryl Hannah's sister. Remember, right. Did you ever see Shag? Remember that movie?
Yeah, I always think of him more as a Thrasher or Weird Science, or he's done a lot of great stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Robert's been in show business for 40 years now. He's done a lot of movies.
Incredible. before I have to say goodbye to you, which I'm so upset about, your horror resume is amazingly extensive with Nightmare, and you did an Amityville film along with Scream Queens. But I wanted to comment on your Amityville film. Did you
Right.
spin onto it because you're a big fan of the Amityville story, or did you read the script and say, this sounds fun?
Oh no! Somebody offered it to me, and I was happy to go and do it. It was great. I enjoyed doing it. I actually got to dye my hair for it, so that was a cool thing. So I was looking sort of like somebody else, and I like the paranormal and all that kind of stuff. So it was interesting. I mean, whenever you're offered something with a huge name like that, you'd be foolish not to say yes, you know. So that I also did a movie called Family Possession with Felissa Rose, who's from Sleepaway Camp, and Hatchet Face and all those. Which I really, really loved. And I just finished a movie that's coming out, I guess, in the next couple of months. It's on the circuit right now. It's called One Dead Dog, and it's a slasher serial killer movie, and I'm really proud of that because I play a grown up in that, so it's really fun.
Okay. Oh, last thing, I have to ask you, was Nightmare 2 filmed inside the actual house?
No.
Those were all sound.
Nothing was ever filmed inside that house.
Not even
it's all filmed
shots of you?
It's all we shot exteriors of the house.
Yeah.
But never on the inside of the house. No, in Nightmare 1, 2, nothing. Nobody ever shot inside the house. We open the door and step inside, but there's no interior filming in the house. And none of it's all done at the Desilu Studios on Gower, because it was all built. All the sets were built because, if you're going to have beds exploding and rooms turning upside down, you can't really do that in a normal house.
That's true. And have you ever been inside the actual house? Like, have you ever toured through it?
Yes, I have. Actually, the last people that owned it were really, really gracious and invited me in. And it's fabulous on the inside. I mean, they've blown out the back and it has a swimming pool now. And those people are really, really nice because they get so much foot traffic for that house. And that is the most filmed street in the world.
Yes.
And you make a lot of money for renting out your house there. So if you rent out your house and it's you can make $100,000, but they keep that painted like the Elm Street house, which makes them they don't rent it because it's too iconic. Okay. So, but they're always nice to people. They have a little sign that says, don't knock on the door, but besides that, and they're real nice people. So if you're there, go and get there are tour buses that come by all the time. And I actually was there once doing an interview with somebody, and a tour bus came by, so those people were really surprised. So they got some free autographs.
Same thing. Tuesday night said the exact same thing. Yeah, except while they were at the actual house, and she was with some director. I forgot his name. That she was with some director, and they were taking a tour of the exterior of the house, and a tour bus went by, and then a bird fell on the guy's head.
Oh my God!
I don't know the story, but
I'll have to ask her.
Yeah. Well, speaking of really nice people, I just talked to one of them. You are just as nice as I thought you would be. You are just as awesome as I knew you would be, and I can't believe that I just talked to Mark Patton.
Well, that's fantastic. I can't believe I just talked to Steven. So it's 2-way street.
Oh, God. Thank you so much. Okay, well, last thing, anything you want to say to your fans before we go?
Well, I just want to say it was a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me. And you can stop by and see me on Instagram or Facebook. Everything is Mark Patton, Nightmare on Elm Street, or just Google me. And stop by and say hi. I'm very fan-friendly, and if you want to have a conversation, I'm always there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I will bid you a good night, and stay safe out there in Mexico. And I love you, Mark.
Oh, well, thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it.
All right, I'll see you later, Mark. You take care. All right. Well, take it easy, Facebook folks. I'm going to go now. As you can see, I've got a lot of cleaning to do. Excuse me for a second.
Hold me, baby, try all night long. Make me love it, kiss and hug it, touch me all night long.